Hi, Lisa, and the other Lisa. There's two Lisas today. Welcome. We'll get started here in just a minute. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
So good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you back on the scene.
Yes, thank you. It's good to be back on the scene.
Yeah. You look
Yes,
bright
yes.
and like you're doing well.
Oh, so well. Yes, thank you.
Good.
Good to have it all done and happy to be back.
Yes, I love that.
We are all
Thank
so
you.
happy.
Thanks.
Yes. Well, a healthy Shannon means there's a healthy soul salt,
Yes.
right?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Healthy Shannon D and a healthy Shannon Judge. So can't go wrong
Health
with that.
all around.
Yes. Yes. And welcome to those of you who are here. I'm Lynn Christian, the founder of Soul Salt. This is one of our free webinars that we do monthly. We just cleaned up our database, so we now know we have over 600 people who subscribe to this. A lot of people listen to it after the fact, so we don't know how many people we'll see today. Lisa, we're so glad you're here. You're becoming a regular, and we welcome you. Lisa Marie, you have a namesake, so welcome. And Shannon Judge is one of our reinvention coaches here, certified reinvention coaches at Soul Salt. She is going to be leading today's discussion with the help of Nicole Lovejoy, who is a licensed clinical social worker and a friend and peer of ours here at Soul Salt that we send a lot of referrals to. So we may have people straggling in, but Shannon Judge, are you ready to just sort of introduce? Okay, go right ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Lynn, for the great introduction, and Shannon and Nicole. One of the topics we talk about so frequently in our calls that we thought might be useful to dive a little deeper is really something that shocks a lot of reinventors, is that sometimes when we take the steps to start reinvention, which is a vulnerable process, and it takes some support to move through it gracefully and with ease and lean into our skill sets and envision a new life for ourselves. Oftentimes we encounter a lack of support, and it often can come from the people closest to us. It can come from our spouses, that can happen with our dearest friends, with our families. And it's a conundrum that I don't know how to explain, but I know that it's frequent. And I know that some of the challenges that accompany this phenomenon are that it's sometimes tough to stay true to yourself. It's tough to stay true and fully committed to your path. If you're someone that knows that there is more out there for you and you dare to dream bigger, it can be frightening. It can be disappointing. It can be a bit of a letdown to have someone not be there cheering you on in the ways that you imagined are possible. So instead of having this be something in our lives that breaks down relationships, how can we learn how to navigate this thing that happens, understand why, and make our relationships even stronger? And find the support that we really need through reinvention. And I thought that having our dear, loved, trusted therapist friend Nicole Lovejoy on today to help us with the specifics as our mental health expert would be tremendous. So Nicole is a licensed clinical social worker in Utah and works around the country with a variety of clients, and has been such an incredible resource to various webinars, boot camps with Soul Salt, and many of us individually one-on-one as well. She's an incredible resource, and I'm so honored that you're here today, Nicole. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. And it's always an honor to land here in the space of Soul Salt. I love all the work that you guys are doing out there in the world, and you guys are a bright light. So it's an honor for me to be here and to get to be a part of the career reinvention call today. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I know you have some information prepared for us today, and I'd love for you to we'll keep an eye on the chat for sure. And if anyone has questions and comments, please speak up, because this is always richer when we all contribute and we get our questions answered. And we'll give you resources at the end to contact Nicole and to contact Soul Salt for more support. So Nicole, take it away and lead us where you'd like to go.
Yes, I will. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say, Shannon, everything that you were saying about how when we reinvent, that just that process alone and overcoming the fears that come up with that are a challenge for individuals. And then when you add on top of that, the relationship piece and the relationship dynamics and feeling that maybe our loved ones aren't supporting us, that adds a whole new layer of difficulty and resistance that can arise as we are kind of stepping into the reinvention space. And so it is kind of a big deal and figuring out how to navigate all of this. So I'm excited to talk about this topic. You know, let's see. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Let's see. Yes, here. Sure. Okay. Okay. So why is it? Why do our spouses, family, closest friends, partners often fail to support us when we're reinventing? And here's the short answer of it is there's no one size that fits all here. And really, I can't answer that. And I can't know for each one of you what that is about and what's coming up in your relationships. But what I do want to talk about and identify are some of the common things that I've seen over the years in working with clients as they are reinventing themselves, in all the different life aspects. So I would say one of the common things that I see when reinventing that can come up with a loved one is if my loved one changes and steps into this new space, what will that mean for our relationship? Will I still be good enough for you? Will you still love me? Will you, ultimately, at the crux of this is, will I be abandoned? That really, I think that is the core wound that gets triggered when in relationships, somebody close to us is changing, is a fear of abandonment. The other issue that I see is when we are stepping into the space of reinventing, we are also going to be shining a light and mirroring those parts of our loved one that are maybe being called to reinvent themselves. And so it can make them uncomfortable that maybe they haven't stepped into that space of reinvention yet. So that's a common one that I see is we mirror each other, and that, where I see this the most, is working in addiction and recovery. And somebody will step into the space of getting sober and recover and doing the recovery work, and all of their drinking buddies or using buddies are like, no, you're fine. You don't have a problem. But really what's happening is they are holding a mirror up to their own addiction that gets to be healed. And so that's an area that I see this. Another thing that could be getting triggered with a partner, or not even triggered, but as something that you could be dealing with is maybe dealing with a toxic relationship and in partnership with somebody that's on the dark triad. And the dark triad is an individual that either struggles with sociopathy, psychopathy, or narcissism. And so when you're dealing with those personality types, you are 100% for sure going to run up against not feeling supported and loved in your growth. So those are kind of the main things that I see, but I'm curious what you guys are seeing and what you've noticed in some of your close relationships as you've stepped into the space of reinventing. I would love to hear from you guys.
I'll share one that I see is very common with reinventors that have a spouse or a life partner, and their relationship is mature, meaning that they've been together for a while. And it sort of has to do with the safety of earning. So if you change jobs or you change careers, what are the implications of that changing our bank account? So that's one.
Yeah, that's huge. I've noticed that too. Yeah. Who else would like to jump on? Anybody else have any other comments?
Well, you really hit some good basic points. Like, somebody that's insecure, it shows. So let me just repeat, make sure I got this. If you're already in a relationship with somebody on the dark triad, or you're in a relationship with somebody who's not as secure in the relationship, like maybe the attachment is an insecure, this is going to ruffle their feathers when you say you're going to change.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. And, really what my hope today is to leave you guys with some tools that can help you navigate this. And really where our power lies is in recognizing what's coming up for us and what's getting triggered for us in these relationship dynamics. That's where our power lies, because we can't control what's going on for our partners, our spouses, our loved ones. Yes, Lisa.
So I'm an engineer by training. I don't know if Lynn remembers me. I did the M-braining way
Yes,
back.
yes.
So when I was in my early training, even before that, I'm an engineer by training, and my family is very, education oriented. So when I decided to become a coach, in addition to being an engineer, so I was doing it on the side, I was taking a really great program. My family was kind of skeptical. They're like, okay, to them, it wasn't legitimate. And they were embarrassed about it, and they're embarrassed for me. And so that's like that's a whole toxic family thing. But that was, was something that I was going in a self-awareness direction that none of them were comfortable with. I guess, like you said, they didn't want to see it in themselves. And and I was very excited about it. And they even thought I was in a cult.
Wow. Wow. Lisa, what I think that you're addressing and you're speaking to is this psychological phenomenon known as herd mentality, where we have a significant, and it significantly impacts human behavior, right? It's like kind of that group think of all aligning with the same behaviors and the same thoughts and the same belief system. But in order to stay in that herd mentality, we oftentimes have to abandon ourselves. And so it takes such bravery and courage to be able to step forward when there's not that understanding. So yeah. Good for you.
I just thought I'd share that one.
Yeah, that's really, thank you for doing that. And it's not unlike some voices we've heard, Lisa Marie, of others who have decided to go into coaching or something that, at the time when you were getting into it, it wasn't as well known as it is now, even. And so I could see how people would be wondering, what's happened to you? You're an engineer, you're very practical, you're very logical. What? This doesn't make sense. Yeah. I would be curious, Lisa, see if this helps, Nicole, at some point telling us how you navigated that. And maybe that's after Nicole goes through some of this, but be ready to share that at some point, okay?
Yes, I will be asking that too. Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to PowerPoint. Okay. I love this quote. This is a Theodore Roosevelt quote. I care not what others think of what I do, but I care very much about what I think of what I do. This is character. And I think that this is really what we're speaking to today, is bravely forging forward and standing in our character and our truth of what we know to be true for us. Okay, so let's look at what could be coming up for you as these relationship dynamics are getting triggered as you're reinventing. And Lisa, I mentioned earlier with you kind of going against the herd mentality. And there's also the fawning response. And the fawning response is a biological response. It's hardwired in our nervous system and our autonomic nervous system. And we have our fight, our flight, our freeze, and our fawn. And fawning is, I am going to figure out what I need to make the people around me happy so that I stay safe in my relationships. This is a really common response in children and growing up in homes that are chaotic. It becomes one of their number one safety strategies is I'm going to figure out what mom needs, what dad needs, what caregiver needs in order to make them happy so I stay safe. And in adulthood, we can see that once these patterns get hardwired in when we're young, that they will show up in all areas of our life. And if we're not aware of this fawning response, it can be kind of our go-to. And so when we're getting pushback from a loved one about making changes, it's really important to be aware of the fawning response. And then fear of being abandoned and alone, fear of criticism, fear of being rejected, fear of disappointing others, fear of angering a loved one, and then fear of outshining someone. And I see this especially in women. I'm curious what could be coming up for you guys. What are some of the things that have gotten triggered as you are navigating this?
Fear of failure and therefore shame.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Yep. I've been there. I can relate to that one.
I think that relates to the imposter syndrome too.
Yep.
Yeah, where it's like, am I good enough? Can I really do this? I know I really want to, but am I going to be able to?
Yeah. Is it Akbar? Please jump in.
Yeah.
I would love to hear.
Hi. My one is about guilt, feeling guilty that you're doing something yourself rather than sort of going against your family's wishes and doing something you want to do yourself. That
Yep.
there's a sense of guilt there. That's what I feel with regard to creating reinvention.
Yep, I have also been there with that one too. Yep, that is a really common one that we see. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I just got another question. Sorry, regarding fawning. If because I believe I've had that dynamic with my parents. When they had a conflict, I was worried about which side to take. So I tried to, if my mum and dad were arguing, I'll try and play, be the child to kind of put them at ease, try and help them out. And I think that's kind of affected me as I've gone forward. What advice would you give for someone that's experienced a lot of fawning in their lives and how to get out of that how to get out of it? Because it feels like you're continuously repeating that behavior with every work situation and family situation, friendship situations and relationship situations. It's all feels habitual, if you know what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what you're trying to say, and you are correct. These patterns we do become habituated to these patterns. And so if fawning is something that you did as a child, it's absolutely going to show up in all areas of your life. And I'm going to get into that in a couple of slides of ways to deal with that. And really the first thing to do, which you're already doing, is recognizing it. It's being able to see it. And as soon as you recognize a pattern, that gives you the power to then choose something different, right? So we have this reaction to stimuli that's going on, to stress that's around us. And as soon as we have that awareness of the pattern, when we can see it, that builds in that pause where we can then choose how we want to respond. And I'll kind of get into that in a little bit more in the upcoming slides. Yeah, thank you for your share. Any other comments before I move on to the next slide? Okay. All right. So when we have these two parts of us, right? We have this part that is trying to emerge, to reinvent, to grow, and to step into a new space. Really, this is the wise part of us, the part of us that's connected to our higher power, that our internal guidance system, our adult consciousness. This is the part of us that's trying to emerge forward. But then we have these other parts that get triggered. And this is the part of us that holds the fawning response, that has the fear of abandonment, that has the fear of not enough. And so it's really important to be aware of the different parts that are getting activated, because as soon as you have these two parts, it creates an internal split. And as long as there is an internal split, it will sabotage your success moving forward. And so it's important to identify and then heal the parts of you that are carrying the fear around your growth. Any comments on that? I'm curious if anybody has experienced that or noticed that, right? That split within themselves. Yeah. Yeah. Lynn, I see you shaking your head. Yeah.
And Nicole, the split is like this internal conflict?
Yes. So a split is the internal conflict. And the lens that I like to look through with this is that we have different parts, right?
Okay.
We have within all of us, I haven't met anybody yet, haven't worked with anybody yet who doesn't have a little one living inside of them that are carrying some wounds, right? We refer to this as the wounded child. And then we have all the protector parts that develop as a result of the woundings that happen to us as children. And then we have the wise part of us, the part of us that holds our truth and holds our potential and holds our growth. And so we have these different parts. And when we're really reinventing and stepping into a new space, it's so common for all of our parts to get triggered and activated, right? And so if the wounded child is activated, but then there's also the wise part of us, it's learning how to take care of the different wounds that are getting triggered within us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you and I had spoken quickly before this call about the saboteur. Is that another one of these parts? And we talked about maybe that in the future would be worth diving into.
Yes, absolutely. So the common, and these are the work of Carolyn Meese. She's identified I think it's 4. So she's identified 4 main, she refers to them as archetypal patterns that we all have. So we all have the critic, the saboteur, the wounded child, and the prostitute.
Okay.
I think I'm getting those right, but I feel like I'm getting one wrong. But yes, the saboteur is within all of us. And really the saboteur, when it's rooted and balanced, it's our lighthouse.
Oh.
Saboteur is that part of us that is looking at where are the potential dangers and how can I head it off at the pass? But if it's rooted in fear, it's only seeing the dangers and it can shut our nervous system down.
Okay.
But when it's rooted from the place of self-love, it becomes the lighthouse, and we're able to root into our lighthouse to see what is my next right action step. It shines the light forward.
Incredible.
So being aware of these different parts, and then being aware of the shadow, right? The saboteur, and being aware of when it's expressed through love, it's the lighthouse.
Okay. Thank you. That's
You're
so
welcome. Yeah. Okay, so what to do with all of this? So if you have an internal split, you must heal it. Otherwise, you will not be able to reinvent. And so I've come up with the 4 C's for reinvention and when these parts are getting triggered. The first one is getting conscious and really being aware of the different parts that are getting activated within you. And we do this through curiosity. And curiosity is also the observer mind. And this part of us is able to kind of step outside of the patterns and be curious, right? Like with Akbar, that's the part of you that's able to recognize this pattern that you saw as a child, and then also see that it's showing up in these different areas. That's the observer role. And so being really curious and asking, how old am I feeling right now in my body when these fears come up? You know, if we open space up for that, our body, and connect into our body will also let us know. What are my thoughts right now? Where are my thoughts anchored? Are my thoughts serving me? Or are they sabotaging my success? And then the important question to ask is, what are these different parts needing? Right? And so what is the wounded child that's getting activated needing? Versus what is this part of me that's trying to emerge, the wise part of me needing, right? And typically, one of the things that we all need is the coach. The internal coach is the light aspect of the critic. We all have the internal critic, that voice that's so hard on ourselves, that really, I think that the job of the critic, the underlying fear of the critic, is avoiding disappointing other people, avoiding being abandoned, avoiding failure, right? And so it can just be so critical and hard on ourselves. But it creates inflammation in the body. It creates stress when we have such this negative thought process. And so it's important to really learn to anchor into the coach and come forward with a voice of self-love and self-compassion. And then the other thing that is so important is to build a community around you. Surround yourself with support, especially if you're struggling with loved ones who are not being supportive. It's aligning yourself with coaches and therapists and people who have gone before you that have already reinvented into this space. Finding friends and finding those people that can support you and help you kind of step into the next space. So I'm curious, is there any questions on any of this? Good. Okay. This is what I have. I didn't want to throw too much at you guys. I really wanted to allow space for questions, and space for whatever's bubbling up for you guys. So I'm gonna stop this and come back here to all you beautiful people.
So I think we could ask the members, and Shannon, Judge, let's see if this works. Those of you who are on here, contemplate if you can sense a split or you've had one. Think about that. And then ask yourself, how much of that have you addressed? And maybe, Nicole, you can tell us, and even Shannon, Judge, you have your own experience with this too. I know you have. Yeah, just address what I've just said, Nicole. I don't know that you need to go further. Just, yeah.
Okay, and so your question is like how to know when there's this internal split or what you're seeing?
Yeah, or even know, how to identify that it's there, because what you're telling us very emphatically is it's going to be in our way of reinvention if we don't address it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I would say that the split can be how we know we're in a split is when we're shut down. We have a hard time making decisions. We are in the imposter syndrome. We are rooted in fear and feel kind of paralyzed and can't figure out our next right action step. Then typically what's going on is a little one is getting activated and there's that split. Right. And so it's learning how to integrate these parts and finding safety with these parts so that we can move forward.
Lynn, I'm thinking about how do we address it? Like I'm almost wondering, I'm almost thinking ahead to a part 2 of this call. Like maybe this would be worthy of another conversation. In how do we address this with our loved ones, especially when it's not everyone's aware of of their patterns, right? And also the question that comes up for me and specific about reinvention is how do we take all this and stay true? Like how do we, and I think the answer really is in a lot of the core tenets that Lynn continuously presents in these calls is like anchoring into core values. It's anchoring into the trust model and also knowing where we're at in the process. Even if we're in the in-between, it's a little bit murkier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your first question is how do we have the conversation with our loved ones?
Yeah, and what does that look like?
What does it look like? Yeah. You know, so here's the thing is anytime we're having a conversation with our loved one, it really is staying rooted and grounded from a place of love for self and love for our partner or a friend or family member, instead of going into blaming, criticizing, shutting down, withdrawing. And so it's, you know, and this is kind of communication 101, but really using I statements, owning what you're saying, talking about how you're feeling, that is going to open up more of a safe place to have some deeper dialogue about what's getting triggered for you, and then what's getting triggered for the other person. I have found that when we come into a conversation with taking accountability and softening, that it creates a safer container to kind of have some deeper meaning, more meaningful conversations. And one of a phrase that I like to use and kind of coaching clients how to have really difficult conversation is this, is to kind of identify, like, this is what's coming up for me. This is what I'm feeling. This is the story that I'm telling myself, and this is what I'm afraid of. That is the big piece right there. What are you afraid of? What is my fear? I'm afraid that this thing is going to happen. I'm afraid that if I step into this new space that you're not going to love me or support me.
That's enormous.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did I answer all your questions, Shannon?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa has her hand raised, yeah.
Oh, yes, Lisa, please. Thank you.
So I learned this in a dating community for older women, I'll say, women of a certain age and beyond. But it was really interesting. The question was, how do you deal with your frenemies? The people, your friends and family who aren't really all being all that supportive in your effort to find a new mate. And I think this applies. And she literally said, you can take another tack in that you can try to turn them into allies by just telling them straight up, or talking to them and saying, it would really help me if you would.
I love
And
that.
then support me in this effort to, I want to be happy. It would really help support me. It would really help me if you would. And then tell them, you could even say, encourage me. You could even say, and I thought that was like, it's not, I think it might be a hard conversation to have, but I think maybe I've never actually tried it, so I don't know.
Mhm. I love that. And really what you're speaking to is asking for what you're needing, right? It's one of the best ways to get our needs met.
I think it might make them aware that it might snap them out of their resistance if you, in a way, you're kind of calling them out on it, and but without calling them out, and just saying, it would really help me if you would, fill in the blank, or, allow me some uninterrupted time so I can work on writing my blog, or, whatever, or be okay with me taking 2 hours to, uninterrupted to do something specific. And I think that I don't practice it, but now that I'm talking about it, I should. So.
Yeah, and Lisa, as you're talking about all this, really what comes up for me as you're sharing that is asserting boundaries, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to carve out this time to do this. And one of the things about boundaries is boundaries really are our job to uphold. And so we often think the boundaries are for the other person, that we let the other person know what our boundaries are, and therefore they should respect our boundaries. But it's really our job to respect our boundaries and hold space for that. And that's kind of being able to speak that clearly of, this is what I'm needing, and AKA this is my boundary.
There's the boundaries, and then there's also the critics, or the people who are just kind of not really on board with what you're doing. And so I think the tool could be used either way.
Yeah, you're right. And with the critics, I think one of the best things with that is the radical acceptance, is accepting that this person is a critic in my life. They are unsupportive, and in accepting that we can take the necessary steps to protect ourselves from that toxic behavior.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love this conversation.
Yes, Lisa, great. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah.
One of the things that I find myself doing is attributing thoughts into other people's minds, meaning, for example, I don't even, I get concerned about even asking someone about whether they would accept my change or not, because I already in my head have thought of all the things they could potentially be worried about. So I'm trying to figure out how to like get beyond that.
So,
So for example, like, there's not, so my husband hasn't shown any resistance to any of the things that I've talked to him about, but he also hasn't shown anything that's encouraging or that he even cares that much about it. And so in my mind, I start thinking, well, does he have a problem with it? Should I ask him if he has a problem with it? But I don't want to ask him that way because then that might cause some, tension. So I'm kind of curious what you think about that.
yeah, I think in that scenario, I think having the difficult conversation and asking the questions and being curious. Hey, this is what's going on for me. This is what I'm thinking. I'm curious if this is true.
Okay.
Right. And so in the 4 C's, that curiosity, it's being curious with ourselves, but also it means being curious with those around us. And when we stay in a place of curiosity, that is also a less defended place and can also cultivate a less threatening conversation. Yeah, I'm curious. Lynn, what would you recommend here?
I love the idea of curiosity. For the reasons you've answered or given, and also when we try to eliminate a behavior, we're less successful than when we move toward a new mindset. And I think curiosity is a mindset. So I think that's a really good antidote. Be in discovery, be in curiosity, look around. And you can also extend it to who can I find that will be supportive? Because we don't need people that are just neutral either. We need people who are raving fans. And that's where sometimes coaching comes in or mentoring comes in.
Yeah.
So I think, did I address what you were asking? Yeah.
Yes.
And I really do like your idea, Shannon, Judge. I think we could go further. If we were to take this to another session, this is June's and we have July off, and then we resume this webinar series in August. Where would you guys want to see this discussion going? And everybody on the call so far could chime in here. What would be the next step? We could even see if we'd be lucky enough to get Nicole to come back. What would be the next step you'd want us to discuss on this topic of getting the support you need from those in your life when you're reinventing? So Akbar, what would you say?
My thing, I think this webinar has been great. I mean, you've covered a lot of things. I think it could go into more detail because we all have questions, more questions about this topic itself. Because we all have to deal with, well, if we're going through a career reinvention, we all have to deal with different sets of people. We're all going to meet we're also going to meet different sets of people as well that we never met before while we're going through this sort of period. So I think this, I believe this thing, I believe there should be a part 2 or even a part 3.
Okay. And maybe what we're hearing from you, Akbar, is maybe we could even do some in the moment coaching with somebody who's in that situation too. Yeah. So Lisa, Elizabeth, what do you guys see as the opportunity for extending this conversation? Or do you even see it? You can be honest and say, I think we covered it. People are thinking deep thoughts. That's one thing you're known for, Lisa Marie, is deep thinking.
When, I'm wondering, if doing, and you've been through this process, and Shannon, Judge, you have to, of getting a volunteer and doing a pattern map where this dynamic is coming up to help really tease out and help people see on a little bit deeper level.
Yeah. where that's showing up, the pattern mapping. And so if there's, I love that idea. And if there's somebody on the call that would want to volunteer and have Nicole, you might have to do some prep work ahead of time, Nicole, with that person to know, but that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
Lisa,
And
raised her hand.
Yeah.
oh, yes, Lisa.
I did. I was thinking maybe the next step, and I'm not suggesting anybody go out and create this, but there are probably already, I know Lynn probably knows, there are probably maybe a succession of some tools that, that would build on, like, more of the foundational than the implementation, and then, in more of a progressive way. I'm sure there are tools that already exist that could help between, especially the two of you, Nicole and Lynn. There are probably some tools available that if you kind of use them in succession, they would help build those structures, or first get the awareness and then build the structures and then take the actions.
Yeah, I love that, Lisa. I'm curious for you, where would a tool be most helpful?
This is kind of embarrassing to say, because I've spent the last 4 years studying to be a certified trauma coach, which I am. But I'm going through a bizarre, I'm going through major decision-making and life change right now. And part of that is I just want to start really making money with my business and supporting myself. But so for me, unfortunately, I'm all the way back at those beginning stages of, what are my values? Because what is my new mission now that I'm reinventing myself and all the work that I've done and the person that I want to be? I don't know. I'm sort of all the way back at some of those foundations.
Yeah. So what we do have the steps for that, Lisa Marie, and Shannon's going to put it in we do. I just published the book on soul salt.
I was just going to say, yes, just pick up Lynn's book.
I haven't read it. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
have so much information coming at me. It's unbelievable. So
Those are, yeah, no, that's fine. And you wouldn't know. Those are the first steps. Reading my book will get you into, okay, redefining the values, unique personal needs, understanding superpowers, mitigating against weakness, measuring at yourself into some kind of management of pseudo strengths. There are like 8 or 9 things that you do, and then you are primed for reinvention. And then this dynamic that we've been talking about, that Shannon Judge invited Nicole to speak on, may or may not arise. So yeah, I think we have it. And Shannon D will make sure we get that in the chat and or in the email that follows with this particular. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's as soon as we finish with our coach certification program, then I go back to writing the book about reinvention. So there are more tools coming. Yeah. So Shannon Judge, do you feel like we're where we need to be for today?
Yes, and I'd love to issue an invitation to anyone on this call and also anyone watching the recording afterwards to please email SoulSalt, info@soulsalt.com with any of your requests and curiosities. Lynn, you just hit the surface of attachment styles, which Nicole, I think if you dove into that is a massive piece of information that I feel many people aren't aware of that could play into this. And the tools, I think there are a lot of ways we could go, and to keep this mental health thread alive through reinvention and these calls, I think would be incredibly powerful. So if anyone has questions or requests or thoughts afterwards, please get in touch. And if anyone wants to reach Nicole, of course, we can that maybe that will go out in the follow-up email or something like that.
How to reach out. Yeah, Shannon's on it.
Yeah, and do your own pattern mapping.
Yes.
And in that future call, that would be really exciting to see the volunteer with the pattern mapping with Nicole. So Nicole, thank you for being here. It's so invaluable. Lynn, thank you for carving out this beautiful community and this amazing space for us all to learn and grow. And thank you everybody for being here. Lynn, do you have some comments, or Nicole?
Yeah, just thanks, Shannon Judge, for your work to curate this and get this set up as we've had it today. So we'll continue this in August. And thanks everyone that's here. We do this every month. At Soul Salt, we are dedicated to measuring our success in heartbeats. versus dollar signs. And one of the free webinars we have is this webinar. We also have one that happens each month called Courageous Growth, which is on a variety. This webinar is always going to address reinvention, the dynamics, the needs, the wants, and sometimes the fears. So thank you for everybody that was participating today, and those of you who are listening. Those of you who listen and do not participate, let us, drop us a line sometime and let us know what you're getting out of the webinars, because we would love to hear from you. So thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.